Hello everybody. I am Melindy and you're watching the E-volve show. Today we're gonna be talking about the importance of showing up in the world as how you really are. And for that reason, we have brought an empowerment coach and her name is Dominique Didinal. Dominique is an entrepreneur, writer, and founder of Radiant Woman, and she can help you discover your radiance, your voice, and your calling. Hi, Dominique. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here today. It's a total pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
Of course. So why don't we start by telling the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do in your business?
Yeah, so my name's Dominique and I run a company called Radiant Woman, and I help women get over their fear of being seen and heard so that they can feel more comfortable in the workplace, stand up for themselves better, and if they're entrepreneurs, they can get past the blocks that are keeping them stuck. So we have a tendency as entrepreneurs to have a lot of inner obstacles and limiting beliefs, and that leads to a tendency to keep ourselves small and hiding out and self-sabotaging. So I work with female entrepreneurs and female execs to get past those inner blocks. And a lot of the inner blocks tend to be around visibility, around feeling safe to be seen. And it's really hard to have a successful career in the corporate world, but it's also really hard to have a successful business if you're not willing to be seen, to do what we're doing now and meeting on camera and speaking and actually just putting yourself out there. And there's lots of different reasons why that might be. And my own journey was I'm someone that worked in brand and marketing, and I was an actress for a long time. So you think, well, then I've got all the skills, I've got everything I need, right, to be seen and heard. That should be easy. But actually it wasn't. I still held myself back. So I had to go on this deep healing journey myself, and it was a spiritual path as well. And I took everything that I've learned and put it into my business and my program. And now I help women get past that so they can shine their light in the world. That's the most important thing.
That's so beautiful. And yeah, what you were saying, like I was reading on your website, how all of this started for you. You say like, yeah, it wasn't easy for you. Like, so you got inspired to help other women. I was like reading you like did a bunch of other jobs in like more like in the masculine, on some industries that they were more masculine. So
Yeah.
how was this for you? How was the journey that you were like, well, this is not working for me. What am I doing?
Totally. Well, yeah, I say I managed to, and I didn't do it deliberately, but unconsciously, we're always kind of creating our life, right? But I say I ended up in the most masculine industries there are. I worked in property, railways, and then football. And I don't like football, so I don't know how it happened, but I ended up working for one of London's top Premiership teams, which is either amazing. It's Arsenal Football Club for anyone that does care. It was amazing for people, or people's eyes just glaze over. And that was a bit of a sticking, that was the point for me, I think, because I suddenly realized I'd worked so hard to climb up the ladder of success, and I'd got to the top, I'd got really high and I got really successful in my career. And then I looked around and just thought, what am I doing here? Like, put all this effort and energy in, and I've been climbing the wrong ladder. And I was tired and I was depressed, and in those kinds of environments I didn't feel comfortable being myself. I was on this kind of hamster wheel of working really hard and hustling and perfectionism, and eventually I was burning out, and I don't think I even realized that I was burning out. But that feeling of flatness and not wanting to get up in the morning, that kind of depression is a really low energy, because you're not, well, I wasn't connected to my heart, connected to what I really wanted to do. So I then did something that I don't particularly recommend my clients do. I threw everything out. I quit my job. I told my boss I wanted to travel the world and fall in love and write poetry and forget about marketing, to be honest with you. And that's what I did. So I'd always wanted to travel anyway. And when I started traveling, it became a spiritual path. It became this much deeper exploration into me and how I could have, you know, gone so far down a road on a path which really is, maybe it looked good on the surface, you know, and it sounded good on paper, but I wasn't connected to it. It wasn't coming from my heart anymore. It felt a bit like a shadow career. So I went on this journey to really discover myself and what I really wanted to do. And I traveled the world and I became a meditation teacher, foremost and firstly, meditation teacher of the heart. And that's, you know, it's not even aligned to any one particular religion or spiritual tradition. It's called Hridaya, it's the spiritual heart. It's all about how we have this divine intuition, this divine wisdom that comes from our heart. And that's the wisdom across spiritual traditions. So I started there, and then I kept trying. Every now and again I would dip my toe into the online world to see what I was, you know, what I could do, but nothing quite took off. And I think that's for two reasons. It's partly because I needed to go on this journey and experience everything for myself. You know, I was still exploring, but it was also because I was holding myself back. There were all these limiting beliefs that I had about myself that I wasn't even aware of. And so I had to go on this deeper healing journey and discover the tools and the modalities that worked for me to really make a shift in my own life. And now that's the journey that I take other women through.
That's so beautiful and so powerful, because it's true. Like, I mean, so many of us, like what you say, like you need to do your own journey before starting anything new. And as women, like it's so, I mean, I guess everybody, but especially women, right? Like we stop ourselves, or like the society have taught us things, the limiting beliefs. Like, so we're here today, like talking about empowering women, right? Like how to like shine yourself, because we always read about all these things, right? Like, oh, what is empowerment? What is like shining yourself? Find yourself. Like it's tricky for a lot of people, like maybe people who are watching today, like if you're not feeling like super excited about your day a day, if you, what you, Dominic was saying, like you wake up and you're like, oh God, I don't want to go to work today. Like all of those are signs. So Dominic, what is empowerment for women, and why is it so important for today's woman in the world?
Wow, what a big question.
Right?
Well, you know what, for me, I think everyone has this desire to be seen, heard, and accepted for who they really are, without the social masks, without having to pretend to be anything else. And I also within them of their potential. So you froze a little bit, but I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And so empowerment for me is that cutting loose of doing what other people expect of you, of doing things for other people's approval, of people pleasing, of being the good girl, of, you know, and really getting strong and still and centered in yourself and knowing who you are and what you want to create, and offering it without shame, you know, without fear, and with pride, knowing that you're worthy, knowing that you're valuable, that you have something unique, a unique gift to share, and that there are people out there that want to receive it, that it's worthy. And I find working with visibility that's the issue that myself and a lot of my clients have had, is that we've somehow created this false mask, you know, this false personality to survive in the world. And that's why we've become so disconnected from our body, our heart, and our soul, what we're really longing to do. And we get, particularly I think as women, I don't think it's a generalization to say that we've had like years of a patriarchal system, of an oppression, where we're expected to actually, being good, being quiet, being demure has been rewarded, you know, being the good girl. So we've really tried to squeeze ourselves into a box in order to get by in life. But if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, if you just want to have a fulfilling life, then it's about following your own sacred thread. right? It's not about doing what other people expect of you. Many of us come from childhoods or backgrounds where our parents had an idea of what they wanted us to do, right? Or where society knows what it thinks is successful. But really getting grounded in what successful means to us and being brave enough to show ourselves and know that we're being completely authentic. And I know that's a buzzword now and everyone uses it, right? But being completely true to ourselves, completely honoring ourselves and our spirit, and knowing that it's okay. It's okay if not everyone likes us. It's okay if not everyone wants to stick around, actually, because the right people and the right opportunities, the right environments will find us automatically, and we will feel much more like we're contributing to the world and that we're having a much more meaningful life if we honor that.
Yeah, and I think also adding to your knowledge, it's like we play small, like what you were saying, like sometimes we try to be somebody else, and then we feel, I mean, sometimes like Jackie or something is not working for us, or like something is off. So you can tell when you're not being aligned to who you are. And then what you were saying, like once that you realize that you can discover yourself, who do you, how, what makes you happy, like how do you feel happy or things like that, then when you start paying more attention to those things, right, you start attracting, like people say these things like, oh, you attract the people, and it's true because you're just bringing that energy to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that word attract is really good. It's like we become magnetic. That's why my business is called Radiant Woman. We start radiating something when we're really aligned, you know, when we're in integrity with our desires, with what we want, we start radiating something naturally. So yeah, that's a really good word. And it's interesting as well, you know, you asked about the environments that I worked in. I think quite a lot of us as women in the Western world anyway have had this experience. I mean, I think mine was possibly quite extreme, but we've had this experience of working in what is a very old patriarchal paradigm where in order to succeed, we have to compete, we have to work very hard, we have to focus, we have to just go for it, you know, and it doesn't matter who gets in our way. And as women, all of our natural power in terms of our emotions, the energy and the wisdom in our emotionality and our intuition, our receptivity, our connection to the land, our connection to a deeper, wiser wisdom, you know, that exists, the divine, all of that has been pushed down a bit and it hasn't been allowed to breathe. Our compassion, our kindness, you know, our vulnerability, these are all strengths. These are all powers that we can use to empower ourselves and to live the life that we want to lead. But it can be really difficult to plug back into that if we've come from an environment where that's been not respected and not seen and heard. So a lot of the visibility work that I do is really helping. It's not so much about giving presentation tips or marketing tips. I used to work in marketing, so I do that with my clients. I can help that. But it's really about helping people see themselves for who they really are and like and love themselves enough to know that they're worthy of sharing it with others.
Totally. And just accepting yourself, how you are. Like if you're just silly and funny, that's great. If you are more serious, that's great too. Accepting, you know, like all the parts of you, like the good ones and the bad ones. But as you were saying, I feel also like we need that space. As you were mentioning, you took that time to travel, like sometimes all of these videos and everything is like for you guys, like maybe you don't have to reach that point where you're like, okay, I'm done with everything, nothing is working, I need to just sell my house. You know, it's just like we're so lucky that nowadays we can have these conversations between women. Like we we are in leader positions, we are starting to like do more things than before, like we're growing businesses. So it's great for now, like the, you know, like just to have the idea like, okay, just think, like what are the things that doesn't work for you. Like maybe you don't have to be that drastic, but if you start working on yourself, or like with people like Dominic can teach you how to start looking internally, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I always say I burned all my bridges so you don't have to, you know. I made all the mistakes, definitely. I did it the hard way. I did it like there's this really brilliant expression in the book, Feel the fear and do it anyway, where she says, you know, the path up the mountain is straight. You just go right up. But instead, I did it by going all around the mountain with 2 suitcases and a watermelon under my arm. I'm like, that's what I did as well, right? So I did it the difficult way. But
And
no,
that's beautiful.
yeah,
You can teach now people how to do it easily.
yeah. And it is about, you don't have to escape from your life, but you do have to carve out some space and time with boundaries to
Yeah.
give to yourself and put yourself first. And that can be really difficult for
Yeah.
us as well. Uh, we also have a tendency to overgive, I think, as women. I certainly do as well, you know, and always juggling different roles in workplace as mums. And so really having boundaries and putting yourself first, like saying, I'm going to put my emotional needs first,
Yeah.
and I'm going to take some time in stillness just to sit and be with me. Yeah, it's a beautiful first step. And then when you start doing this work, and it is good to work with someone simply because I think transformation happens when you're in a container and you can be witnessed. Someone else can see the growth that you're going through and reflect it back to them.
Yeah.
It could be working with a coach, or it could be in a group, or it could be a, you know, a free program, whatever it is. I think it's really helpful, particularly as women, because we are collaborative, right? We work, we thrive together. We naturally receive, we're intuitive and we receive. So if we're with other women, we receive their gifts naturally just by being in their energy. So it really works like that. And when you start doing that work, you might find that things change in your workplace anyway, that the relationships that you were struggling with in your work automatically unravel a bit and are easier simply because you're changing and you're shifting as well.
Yeah. It's just so good. And what you say too, like for women, like we do community, we bring people together. That's how we like thrive in life and how we grow. So it's like it's hard nowadays because we are all at home doing this video conference. Like it's great because we still have that opportunity to connect,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for everybody, just like try to connect with other women. And what you were saying, like it's just the way, if you're gonna grow, somebody can be there with you and support you. So Dominic,
Yeah.
what are some things that you see in your clients, something that you're like, oh, every woman comes with this limiting belief, or like, oh, a lot of them do this? What are some things that you see? So if people
Yeah.
are watching today, they can be like, oh, that might be me.
Well, yeah. So I think the interesting thing is when people come to me to work on visibility, whether they're an entrepreneur and they're not quite confident in, you know, sharing of themselves, putting their head above the parapet, you know, to, or they're an executive, they're working in an office environment, but they are still like frightened of giving the presentation or speaking up in meetings, that kind, all of that. People tend to think that they're the only person, you know, and that there's something wrong with them. But like visibility is this, being visible and presencing yourself is this talent that some people have and other people don't. And I want to say that's not true. Everyone struggles with it, right? It's actually biological. There's this it's our reptilian brain that gets triggered when we stand in front of a room of people or when we talk. You know, it goes back to the caveman days when we were hunting on the plain, and if we were picked out of the tribe and we were by ourselves and the rest of the tribe was over there, then we were dead, you know, we weren't safe. And it's that same fear that gets triggered when we speak or we show ourselves. We have separated ourselves from the tribe. Um, and that is a kind of critical fear and feeling of a lack of safety that we all have, that's programmed into all of us. So I think that's the most important thing I'd say, is you're not alone. I would, maybe not everyone, but I was an actress from when I was 15. I worked in brand and marketing and I still struggled with it. So like everyone has issues around this. And it comes down to safety, comes down to we don't feel safe. And so there's those kind of, there's that reason, there's the biological reason. But if we ever had any kind of trauma in our childhood, or any kind, and I mean, firstly, I'll say any kind of developmental trauma. So we had parents that were physically or emotionally abusive, for example, or we had any kind of neglect where we weren't getting our needs met, where our parents weren't seeing us. Literally, we don't see ourselves because often our early caregivers didn't see us. Then we'll struggle. We won't feel safe to be seen because we're triggered back to these early childhood wounds, which we develop a lot of patterns when we're children to keep ourselves safe. And if we had a parent that shouted at us, then it was going to be very difficult for us to presence ourselves because we knew we were going to get rage, or we were going to get mocked, or we were going to get, or we were going to get the silent treatment, anything like that. Then that's terrifying. That feels like death to a young child. Even if you didn't have a parent, even if you had a good childhood, right? These things still happen. Like parents do the best they can, but they can be busy. Or you can be the middle child, and being the middle child, you maybe just didn't get as much attention because both your parents were working. It doesn't have to be a big drama or a big trauma. It can also be something like that. We weren't seen enough. Like our parents weren't present enough to see us as the little individual, unique human beings we are. And so we didn't see ourselves. And so getting over that, healing those wounds to feel that we are worthy of being seen, that we are safe to be seen, and that we are lovable exactly as we are. I think those are core things that everyone that comes to me works with. They're core limiting beliefs that so many of us carry, this feeling that we're not enough, right? And it's not true. It's not true. Of course it isn't true. But things can happen in our past, and then they can repeat. If you were bullied at school, if you were pulled out in front of the class by a school teacher, we can even forget something like that happened. And then I'll take someone into hypnosis because that's part of what I do, and these memories will come up. So that's quite a common one with people that have a fear of public speaking, that they were actually bullied at school. So again, that's that fear of being mocked, fear of being humiliated. But yeah, there are some core basic beliefs, and they all center around I'm not safe, and I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy of sharing my gifts.
So what will be like some things for like some women who are watching today, like if they are feeling this way in some way, like what are some tips or things that they can start working on today while they're thinking like maybe I need to work with somebody so I can feel more confident and I can start like presenting myself and showing up as myself?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say the first place to start is working with safety, with helping yourself feel completely safe. And so it's really taking baby steps, but with visibility particularly, you really do need to step up and do it in order to realize that you're safe and that the world doesn't end and that you're okay. But just looking at boundaries and who you feel safe with and who you don't feel safe with is a really good place to start understanding yourself better. So, are there people that are somehow in your social group or on social media, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, who actually leave you feeling anxious? It's really good to bring a lot of consciousness to this and think, so like I didn't post on LinkedIn for ages, and then I suddenly remembered it's because I had an ex-boyfriend on there and I was worried about him seeing my posts, but I'd completely forgotten about it. So it's really good to take a lot of consciousness, get your journal out and write safe and unsafe and a line down the middle, and then divide up all of your network into who you feel safe with. And these are people that see the best in you, that amplify your positive feelings, that help you feel hopeful and positive about yourself. And then the unsafe people do the opposite. They're the ones that push your buttons, or they make you feel a bit anxious, or they seem to see in you the insecurities and the worries that you have about yourself. We all know people like that. And are any of them lingering in your inner circle or on your social media? If you're an entrepreneur and you want to start posting on Facebook regularly. Really get clear on who those people are, and then start taking action, start setting boundaries, you know, hiding posts from them or deleting them or blocking them. I'd start there.
Well, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think it's just great. Like what you say is also like the people who makes you feel good. It's probably in those moments you're more yourself. So it's
That's
like
right.
what you were saying, like just to pay attention to those things that you're like, oh, I feel so comfortable here. So like then that's probably more yourself than when you're in the other situations where you're like trying to hide. So it's just a great advice for everybody. Let's see, because my internet, it says.
Just froze a little bit, but I can hear you now.
So Dominique, do you want to tell us a little bit about the freebie or what you have for the audience today so they can follow you?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So it's a radiant visibility training, and it's a free video training. It's 3 videos. The first one goes into what your visibility blueprint is. So we all have this kind of blueprint from our upbringing and our gender, our life experience, and also our ancestry of the things that make us feel safe or unsafe to be seen. So we cover that, and you can get, it's got a workbook as well that you can work along with, so you can get really clear on that. And then we go on to uncovering some of your limiting beliefs. What are the beliefs that are getting you stuck when it comes to being seen? And then the final video is really giving some very practical tips and tools for presentation giving, because very often people might not be able to say, oh, I hate being seen, but they all know they hate giving presentations, you know, or they hate public speaking. And there's a real dread to that, you know, your heart starts racing, the adrenaline starts flowing. So I've given lots of really practical tips that you can do to calm your nervous system down, to use the thrill of adrenaline to keep you going, and some like little acting tips so that you can give a calm and confident presentation.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So how can people connect with you? What's the best way for people to connect with you, Dominique?
Yeah, connect with me on Facebook. So you can befriend me. That's just my name, Dominique Didinal, which you can see on the link there. My website is radiant-woman.org. And very happy to see you there. And there's a Facebook group as well, which is A Radiant Woman, and you're very welcome. It's a free private Facebook group, and I do a couple of free trainings a week in there, and I often do things like new moon and full moon blessings as well. We have lots of other meditations and divine feminine stuff too.
Beautiful. Do you want to add anything else for the audience today?
Good question. Yeah, I would say be brave and do it. Life is too short. And I think if anything this last year has taught me with COVID, I don't want to hold myself back any longer. I don't want to hold myself back from doing what I really want to do. So find the support, do what you need to do to let your gifts be shared, because can become incredibly painful. You know, we all have little talents and things that we want to do, and the pain of not doing that is always so much worse than overcoming the fear to share your light in the world. So please go for it.
Thank you so much, Dominique. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely lovely to talk to you. Yeah, really great. Thank you for inviting me.